So happy to see you this morning, to have you take time out to join us. I'm going to just start right off by saying it gives me so much pleasure and I'm so honored to introduce this morning's presenter. I had the privilege of being mentored by Ashley when I worked for the Michigan Department of Treasury. I have witnessed the amazing things she has done as part of the state of Michigan's DI leadership team, with an emphasis on leveraging DI metrics to make informed decisions at the state. Ashley is currently the People and Culture Division Director for the Michigan Department of Treasury, focusing on recruitment and retention, professional development, cultural awareness, and strategic planning. Through her work, she has developed and implemented a plan that celebrates inclusion through diversity, dignity, belongingness, and respect for everyone. And that is so true of Ashley, let me just say. Ashley received her undergraduate degree from MSU. Go Green.
Right.
Okay. Right. All right. That was the mic test, guys. So let's try that again. Go Green.
Go white.
Go white.
Okay, there you go. And Ashley received her MBA from Davenport University. Ashley has extensive expertise and experience in developing, implementing, and enhancing DEI programs for public and private organizations. Ashley, thank you so much for agreeing to share your time with us. I am going to turn the floor over to you because you take it so much better than I. So thank you and good morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Pam, for such an incredible introduction. I promise you it never gets easier hearing about yourself. So when Pam talks about me, I'm like, no, I really don't do that, right? Like, I hope I can just live up to your hype for today. So as she mentioned, we're going to be talking about DEI. I have a PowerPoint we are going to go through. So I will share my screen. If I can get a quick thumbs up, letting me know that everyone can see this, everyone has access to it, we're all on the same page. We're good to go, we're good to go. Spectacular. So I will kick off and really get started. We call this our Treasury's Inclusion and Diversity Interactive Discussion. You are going to see exactly why it is called an interactive discussion, because I expect for you to interact, right? None of these presentations do any good if I just talk the entire time. It's so much better to engage with my new friends and some of my current friends that are already here. So I expect for us to have a great time. As part of my introduction, Pam already told you, my name is Ashley Kuykendoll. I do go by Ashley K. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Yes, I serve as the People and Culture Division Director at the Department of Treasury, and I started doing my DEI work in 2009 at MSU. I always give people a little known fact about myself because I don't expect that everyone would know me, but I really, really enjoy process mapping. Like, I love to understand things from like beginning to end. Although I am technically not our CI or Lean champions for Treasury, they're on the call with us, so thank you for joining. But like, that is my jam. I love understanding process mapping, and I am very much into urban exploration. Like, the opportunity to see historic buildings, enter some of those historic buildings, typically in urban areas, that is my jam. So what you see is what you get with me. I am a very authentic person. So like, we're gonna have ourselves a really, really good time. So with that said, like any presentation I do, I love to start off with a few ground rules, just setting the foundation for how I expect for us to engage during our time here, okay? So a couple things. One, this presentation is meant to be an authentic space, okay? I really do mean that. This is why I say what you see is what you get with me. If there's one thing people will tell you about me, it's that I am wholly authentic and true to myself. I am really on 10 every single morning. I promise it's not just because it's Friday, okay? So this is going to be a very authentic space. And for me, that means everyone is welcome to share their opinion. I want you to understand that. At any point in time, you can drop a thought in the chat, raise your hand, unmute, and stop me in case I don't see it. But please, please, please be open to sharing your opinion. And with that, we also need to expressly say it is never appropriate to attack anyone for their opinions expressed. I need to say that very clearly. It is not okay to attack anyone for their opinions expressed, but I do want you to feel free to ask questions as we progress, And I do have this disclaimer off to the side. I think it is always relevant. Some of the topics and some of the dialogue that we cover may cause a little bit of discomfort, right? Like it may feel like, ooh, that hit a little harder. I don't know if I agree, right? And it's okay to be in that space. Being uncomfortable does not mean that you are unsafe by any means. If you want to voice that on this call, I am happy to engage you. If you want to get with me afterwards, I promise that's okay too. But I wanted to make sure we laid that foundation. Any questions before we kick off into the presentation? Hearing none, silence is acceptance, so we'll move forward. Like anything we do, it is always so important to start off with a base foundation, right? Like we need to all understand the same words the same way so that we're engaging effectively. So I wanted to start this morning by taking some time just to define DEI for the sake of how we use it here, okay? This is for the sake of our conversation, how we expect to engage with one another. You will find similar references if you wanted to look it up on, Merriam-Webster, or even using Google. They will not be exact, but they are very close, okay? So when we talk about diversity, diversity is a representation of variety or differences. That's it, right? Like it is the representation of of variety or differences in a centralized space when we are engaging. Similar to that, if you talk about equity, equity is like this intentional distribution of resources designed to meet varying needs, okay? Notice that there's a difference between equity and equality. Equality being that everyone gets the exact same thing the exact same way. Equity being that we're distributing these resources based on who needs what at that moment, okay? If you need a size 8 shoe, it does me no good to give you a size 4, okay? Let me find you a size 8 so that it fits comfortably. That's what we're talking about, all right? And then inclusion is a cultivated sense of belongingness for everyone, right? So it is taking the time to make sure whether you are a size 4, 6, 8, 12, or 18, we have something for you and you all can dance the same way, all right? That is the space of how we are engaging with DEI in the context of this conversation, all right? Any questions thus far? I will periodically ask this, so you know I want to create that space. But again, I encourage you to jump in at any time if you have anything you want to add, okay? We're still good? We're good. Sweet. So with that in mind, where do we start? A lot of people are often having conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion. We often use these words interchangeably, although they mean very different things. And many times we're not talking about how they apply to people, okay? So today we're going to take some time to think about how they apply to us, all right? So where do we start? I'm so glad you asked. We're going to start with doing a brief survey, okay? So in this survey, what you're going to see is a statement come up on the screen. You will respond to the statement by raising your hand, yes or no. In the case of this virtual setting, you can honestly just drop yes or no in the chat, okay? Because I can't see you all on the screen. That also does not bother me, just so we're aware. But I can't see you all. Just in case you want to know, yes or no in the chat, it's perfectly fine. But I do have a caveat that everyone is expected to participate. Any questions? Not yet. All right, let's get started. So, statement 1. Texting while driving is dangerous. How many would say yes? How many say no? In the chat, I see yes, yes, yes. I see a hand up. I'm assuming that's for yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Still seeing yeses. Nobody said no yet. All right. I think we're pretty good. Yes, yes, yes. I don't think everybody responded yet, but I'm not going to hold y'all completely to it just yet. Yes, yes, yes. We see yeses. Okay. We're in the space. Everyone's in agreement. Texting while driving can be a little dangerous. Statement 2. It's important to be a law-abiding citizen. How many say yes? Yes, yes, yes. We see some yes coming in the chat. Yes, yes. Hand up for yes. Hi, Jacob. Thank you for joining. Yes, yes, yes. Heidi says depends. We're going to flag that. Heidi said depends. But yes, yes, yes. Pam says, based on the circumstances, y'all, this is going to get good, okay? Oh, we got to know. Caitlin says no. It is not important to be a law-abiding citizen. with an exclamation mark. Put the emphasis on the no. But yes, yes, yes. Some rest says it depends a little bit. So we got a little variation. Variation is good. Statement 3. Soft drinks, sodas, pops, depending on the region you hail from, are unhealthy beverages. How many yes? How many no? Yes, yes, yes. Ooh, Beth says no. Stacy is yes. Depends on the content. Sherman says maybe. Diet is slightly better. Y'all, we doing real good, right? Like, we doing real good. We got a little variation. We got a little laugh in here, all right? For the most part, we're in agreement-ish, right? In agreement-ish. We're close to agreeing with yes. I can live with that. World hunger is a serious problem to be addressed. How many yes? How many no? I see a yes. I see a yes. I see a yes. 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 Y'all see capital yeses with the exclamation mark. Yes, we need to address it. Any no's? Anybody know? Anybody on the fence? Looks like pretty consistent yeses. All right. Next one. Smoking or vaping, y'all, because the world is changing. Smoking or vaping is an unhealthy behavior. How many yes? How many no? I see yes. 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 I see a Z, a yes and no. Literature says yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right, y'all. I think we did pretty good. That was a pretty good basis for us to kick off with, right? For the most part, we are in agreement with what we talked about. So we understand that texting and driving is dangerous. We want to be law-abiding citizens. World hunger is an issue. Like, we're in agreement. This makes life a lot easier for us, okay? When most people are in agreement, life is pretty seamless, and we like that. I like the way that makes us feel, right? So since we did so good with the first survey, we're going to do another because we did so excellent and we're so in alignment. I love everything about it. We're going to do it again. Same thing applies. We're going to take another survey. Your statement is going to appear across the screen. You can respond yes or no by raising a hand, drop it in the chat because we're here. Nothing's changed. Everyone is expected to participate. Any questions? Silence is acceptance. We're going to do this. Statement 1. I text when I'm driving. And you got to be honest here, okay? This is at the stop sign because technically you're driving behind the road. This includes your talk to text when you just press the button. I text when I'm driving. I see some yeses. I see some no's. I see a guilty. A hand went up. I see a no. I see a talk to text. I see a yes. Somebody said hands free. Ooh, y'all, we didn't fully agree. Almost never. I appreciate that transparency, Georgia. Yes, stoplight, talk to text, and is reframing. She is invoking her Fifth Amendment. I plead the Fifth. I'm just not gonna say nothing. Like somebody said, no, it don't look like we agreed as much as go around, y'all. That's okay. We have more. It's fine. I failed to obey at least one law in the past year. Y'all, I promise you, you better not lie. If you went 72 in a 70 zone, you better tell the truth. Were you obeying the law? Tell me right now, yes or no? Yes, yes, yes. I failed to obey. Yeah, we work with a whole bunch of criminals, y'all. Y'all see these yeses coming up in the chat? Like, yeah, I didn't disobey a couple once or twice to see it in my life. Somebody is zipping their mouth shut. We not even talking about it. Not a problem. Anna's gonna kill me with these gifts, y'all. I'm here for this. So we failed to obey at least one multiple times a week. Thank you, Heidi, for being honest. I'm here with that. I drink soft drinks, sodas, and pop. LaCroix, Count, Soda, Sprite, your Diet, Coke, Zero, all of the above. How many yes and how many no? Yes and no, I mean, ... Yes, 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 yes. Ain't nobody in here pop free? Nope. Kim Z said no pop for me. I see a seldom, which means sometimes. Joanne was real honest. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I appreciate your integrity. Joanne, Yes, a little. No, not really. Oh, I hate fizziness. That is interesting, Stephanie. All right. Within the last year, I've engaged in volunteer work to address hunger in my community. How many yes? How many no? Yes. 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 I love these public service with all of their yeses. Somebody honestly said no. 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 No, but I gave money. That's real. Didn't know there was going to be a survey. Yes, there's always surveys with me, Caitlin. Always surveys. John said no. Who else we got? Yes and no, little no. Volunteer resources, but didn't show up. That's okay. What about number 5? Within the last year, I've smoked or vaped. Most of us would say no. No, no, no. It's okay if you do. No, no, no. I see a yes in there. No, congratulations, Pam said quit in 2019 or 2009, not 2019. Sorry. Caitlin was honest. Cigars get me from time to time. Yes or no? Yes or no? So this is interesting. Y'all, what happened? We did this first survey, and with the exception of 1 or 2 no's or maybes, everybody agreed. Then we did this second survey, and we had a lot of variation. What we experienced, what we witnessed, that is called dissonance, all right? So dissonance is like this set of conflict that arises when you're comparing one set of cultural rules or norms to another set of cultural rules or norms, right? Like it is, think of it as the space between what we say and what we do, okay? So it's like a measure of your attitude and belief versus your day-to-day actions. So the first set of questions or statements in that survey measured what you believe or what you place value on in terms of intrinsically. But that second set survey questions measured your actions, what you do in real time, what you do in your day-to-day lives, right? That free will component that we talk about. Well, that's really important because this in itself demonstrates that we can think we hold one value but behave in a way that does not support that exact same value. I would tell you, I consider myself a law-abiding citizen, but I have a red foot, and I was likely doing 80 in the 70 zone as long as the police wasn't there. I'm going to be honest about it. I know me. I had somewhere to get. I was probably running late because the kids was running late. Like, it's a thing, right? But I will tell you, I am a law-abiding citizen. Those things, they really get us, right? So if we can see it in this space when we talk about drinking pop or texting and driving or even challenging world hunger, if we can see it then, do you ever think we experience this same kind of discord when we're interacting with different people who may be different races or different ages or a different sexuality, maybe they're neurodivergent? Like, if we know it happens then, do we think it could ever happen in any other context? Possibly. Maybe. Right? All right. So someone would ask me, Ashley, why does this matter? Why are you even talking about it? Why do we need this survey? Like, I'm going to tell you why it matters. Here's the thing. How people interpret us affects how they interact with us, okay? And what we just talked about is our perceptions on different things can look different, varying person to person, all right? How people interpret us affects how they interact with us, and people will interpret us based on their own understanding and experiences, based on how they see you, how they see life, what they've experienced, what they know, where they grew up. They're interpreting you based on themselves. And here's the thing. All of it starts with communication. And we know communication can be verbal and nonverbal. It is in tone. It is in pitch. It is in language. It is in body language. It's the things we say and the things we don't. All of it are forms of communication. And here's the kicker. Communication can vary between cultures even when we use the exact same words. So what does this look like in real time? I'm going to tell you guys a story. It's a very personal story to me. This is my personal lived experience, and I'm going to tell it to you as I experienced it, okay? Once upon a time, not long ago, but a little bit ago, once upon a time, I met a guy. He thought I was cool. I thought he was cool. He wanted to go out. I said, man, why not, right? So we went out a couple times, went on a couple days, and he decided, hey, I want to take you out to my parents' house to grab something. Sure, no big deal. I wasn't thinking much of it. I should probably mention I hail from Detroit. Shout out to the 313 in case you didn't know. I am an inner city Detroit girl, born and raised. I love everything about my hometown. Graduated from Cass Tech, number one, second to none, and then went to Michigan State. So that is my lived experience. Being in the city, loving everything about the city, people, buildings, everything, right? So I'm going to go on this date with this guy. Well, we met in Lansing. It's fine. I knew he was from an area that I wasn't necessarily from. I didn't know a ton about Lansing at the time, y'all. So those of us who are Lansing-ites will probably understand. Some of us won't. But this guy I was dating was from an area that was very unknown to me. I had never heard the name before. It was called Eaton Rapids. But I didn't know anything about it. So I was like, hey, this is fine. No big deal. So we start in Lansing, and we're driving out. We get to Holt. We're driving out. And as I'm sitting in the passenger seat, I start to notice a couple things, right? I start to notice that the houses went from being like right next to each other, right, to a little further space out. So it was like house, large space of land, house again, large space of land. And I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. So we're driving. These houses are getting further apart. I'm seeing some things that are like very unusual to me. I mean, there's a lot of farmland. We're driving by, somebody's burning something in the grass. And I'm like, oh my goodness, should we call the fire department? He's like, for what? I'm like, there is a fire. Like, dude, fire, smoke, it's a thing. He's like, yeah, no. And I'm like, all right. So as we're driving, I start to see different types of flags. I see a lot of Confederate flags. For me, in my lived experiences, that raises antennas. I'm like, oops, Jesus, where we going? All right. And it feels like we're driving for an eternity, by the way. Like we are driving for forever, okay? We finally, after like what feels like 3 hours, but more like 40 minutes, we're driving. He turns on a road that turns on a road that puts us on a dirt road, okay? And I remember asking him, do the police even know how to get out here in case of emergency? Like, I have no idea where we are. We get to the end of this dirt road. There's actually a house. Who knew, right? Like, middle of nowhere, in a house. Here's a house off a dirt road. It's kind of dusk. Like, the sky is really pretty. It's like that dark purpley pink because it's getting close to night, but it's not quite night. And we get out the car, and there's this utter and eerie silence like this. Yeah, that's what it sounds like out there. And in that moment, this guy turns to me and he says, you know, out here you can scream and nobody would ever even hear you. We have to leave. Take me back. I don't belong here. Like, no. I am not okay. Like, I am not okay. And he's like, what is your deal? So now that you've heard the story from my perspective, I have a really important question for you. Who is more responsible for clarity during communication? Is it A, the person talking and being interpreted, or B, the person listening and doing the interpretation? Somebody tell me. Go ahead, what you got? Wait, I see some A's, I see a B. Wait, who's that? Somebody said, whoa, hold on. This concept of both really feels like y'all blaming me in this situation, and him telling me I can scream and nobody. Hold on. So somebody go justify this both. It's not y'all blaming me. Liz, Liz, you on the call? Yes, I'm picking on you. Liz, you said both. Why both? How is this my fault? Tell me your thoughts. What are you thinking, Liz?
So, not your fault, but if I was in that situation, I may have been asking some questions in the car, just a little bit. So that little bit of communication, like, where are we going? What's going on here? So that's why I said both. Not your fault, though.
If we should call the ambulance or the emergency department when I saw that fire, like I asked that question, but probably not enough. So Liz says both. I can ask a few more questions. I will go with that. I need a friend, somebody on my side. Who said person A? Person talking. Like, I need somebody to jump. Oh, Jacob. Good morning, Jacob. I know you didn't plan on me calling on you. Jacob, can you tell me why you think it should be person A?
Hi, good morning. The person A is the person who is contributing actual information into the conversation and should be responsible for ensuring that the information that they're conveying is accurate and also properly catered to the audience.
Jacob, what I heard you saying is his fault, and I'm inclined to agree. But in all seriousness, Jacob is saying the person who's doing the talking should make sure that they're fully understood. All right, who got a person B in here? Did somebody say me? Like wholly me, just me? We had a Pam. I can't believe Pam threw me under the bus like that. Come on to the stage, Pam. The person listening and doing the interpretation, tell me why person B.
Well, I'm going to tag along a little bit on what Liz said there. Communication is a two-way street, and you do have some accountability. You started at the beginning here as you were talking and said, if you have questions or if you need me to stop to clarify something, that, you put that on us. And so that's kind of where my brain was going. If I just sit back and I'm quiet and you're doing all the talking and I don't understand, you don't know that, right? So it's my responsibility to make sure that I speak up and raise my hand.
What I heard was Pam was trying to blame me, y'all, but that's okay. But she said that I have responsibility to speak up. She's agreeing with Liz. I need to ask a couple more questions. I'm glad at least Jacob on my side right now. But we're going to put a pin in this. We will come back to this question, okay? We're going to put a pin in this. But I'm going to tell y'all, for anybody blaming me, I wholeheartedly disagree. I did nothing wrong in this situation. So I disagree, which means we are now officially in disagreement, okay? We are at an impasse. I don't agree. I am in disagreement. So why do we disagree? Typically, when you're thinking of the context and conversation, there are really two main reasons, two kind of general themes of reasons why people disagree, right? One starts with, we're entitled to our feelings. I disagree because I can. Like, just saying, I disagree because I can. But oftentimes, this is a response rooted in emotion, and it can be a result of, personal experience or cultural trauma or limited exposure. I only know what I know, I feel how I feel, and I feel like this is wrong, right? Then there's this space of like, we fundamentally just disagree. And often this response is derived out of a current understanding, and it can be a result of upbringing or teaching or rhetoric. And here's the thing. This is one of the challenges we come across in a multi-generational workforce, okay? Multi-generational workforces as the representation of varying ages within our workforce, right? Here's the thing. Currently, right now, in this moment, we are currently the most diverse generational workforce in American history. Like, if you ever wanted to make history, pat yourself on the back right now. We're currently the most diverse generational workforce, right? Our workforce is comprised of the following generations. This includes traditionalists or the silent generation, people who were born in 1945 or before, excuse me, baby boomers, people who were born in 1946 to 1964, Gen Xers born in 65 to 84, Gen Y or millennials born in 85 to 95, Gen Z or iGen of 96 through present. There are cuspers who are in between. There's a lot of fluidity. Some of these vary depending on the reference that you're going to use, but literally the most diverse generational workforce ever. Y'all know the workplace has changed a lot since 1945 to 2023. Like, can you imagine? Like, the workplace has changed a lot. The community has changed a lot. Society has changed a lot from 1945 to 2023. Okay? Context, significant change. Civil Rights Act, the Federal Civil Rights Act, Title VII, passed in 1964. That became the law that said discrimination wasn't legal. Okay? 64. How many of us know somebody born before 1964? Living with us right now. It wasn't that long ago. Voting Rights Act passed in 1965, banning discrimination for voting in our country. And we know just because a law passed, it doesn't mean that the attitudes of the individuals change. It doesn't mean the practices associated have changed, but there's been some large shifts in our workforce. We started to have more women enter our workforce between 1945 and 2023. We've had a lot of shifts. We've introduced the internet. Y'all, we were working virtually on computers day to day during the COVID pandemic. In 1970, that was never the case. You showed up in the office, in person, every day. You were lucky to have a phone to talk on at your desk. And y'all, we do completely virtual meetings right now. Do you realize that's an entirely different etiquette? It's a whole different set of skills. It's a very different type of engagement. You know, it is much easier to do training and be rambunctious and be exciting in person. You feed off of energy. Trainers had to adapt because virtually you can look at a lot of nothingness. No faces, no body language, no pictures. How do you engage people? The workforce changed. And this change isn't necessarily incremental or slow adjusting, even though it feels like that for some, right? It feels like some change can't come quick enough. Like, oh, please let us be fully remote already. And for some, change is coming all too fast. All of the rules are changing. I can't smoke in the workplace. Like, y'all know we used to actually employ jobs for people to clean ashtrays. Like, that was the thing in state government. Their responsibility was cleaning the ashtrays. And we can't even smoke 40 feet by the building now. Like, things are changing. And here's the thing. Rarely does the workforce actually acknowledge these changes or take proactive measures to help employees navigate these differences with ease. We take people from different backgrounds, different educational experiences, different proximities, whether they were living in an urban area, suburban area, rural area, they don't have access to internet at all, they've never owned a home computer. We take all of these people and we put them in the same workplace with no direction, no training, no expectation, just here, go do your job. But then we want them to be accountable for getting along with others and using appropriate language and engaging in meaningful ways and being respectful. And what respect means to you and what it means to me may not be the same, but rarely are we taking the time to set the baseline as an organization. We're too busy putting out the fires. Jump in and go, trial by fire, sink or swim. We know the motto isn't effective, but yet is what we do as organizations. Insert case in point for DEI. Everything we've talked about thus far are the exact reasons why conversations attuned to, attributed to, engaging with spaces of diversity, equity, and inclusion are inherently important. They are critical to the long-term sustainability of our workforce and the overall effectiveness of the work we do. But when we take people from different areas, different backgrounds, different understandings, we fail to give them the tools that they need to navigate. We create spaces that bring in maybe bias a little bit because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know how to talk about what we don't know, and nobody is telling us what we don't know, but I only have my own perspective to go off of. I only have my own experience. I only have my own education. I only have my own background. This is my perception. Well, how does our perception lead to bias? We make assumptions based on our own perceptions and experiences. In the story I shared, I assumed he was ready to kill me because out here I can scream and nobody will ever hear me. What I heard is I would die and nobody would come save me, right? Like, that was my assumption. And he's like, yeah, we can have ourselves a great old time. And when we make assumptions, we base them on our own experiences. And those experiences are interpersonal. They can be conscious or subconscious. And here's the thing, bias can lead to microaggressions. And microaggressions are indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of marginalized groups or communities. And here's the thing, we've all heard them. And at some point, I guarantee you, we've all said them and didn't know what they were. What do they look like? I got one for you. Tell me if you heard it. Millennials are lazy and entitled. Ever heard it? Microaggression. Or, you're so articulate, I'm surprised you're from Detroit. Why? I went to a world-renowned high school that you have to test to get into and maintain a GPA to stay there. It is an internationally recognized program. Why are you surprised I'm articulate? Or maybe you're way too pretty to be a lesbian because my outward appearance has something to do with the person that I choose to be engaged with. Or you're black, but you don't act black because there's a set standard of what black is supposed to be. Or you're surprisingly smart to be a blonde because every blonde you came across was always dumb. Microaggressions. We've heard them. We've said them. We've laughed at them. We didn't realize we shouldn't at some point. We've all done it. But here's the thing. Microaggressions can lead to hostile work environments. When you're the person that's the butt of the joke every time, when the comments are about your hair and what it should or shouldn't look like naturally, and every time you change it, it's wow, it's curly. Whoa, there's an afro. Can I touch it? And you grab them or you pet them as if they're an animal. And you never do it to anybody else. Or what's that smell? Is that curry in your food? How many times should my food be the topic of conversation before I lose it? How many times should my appearance be the topic of conversation before I lose it? How many times should my identity be the conversation or the butt of your joke before I lose it? And why is the onus on me to respond in a way that makes you feel comfortable when your comments are the ones putting me in the uncomfortable space? This is how simple it happens. It doesn't always have to be malicious. It doesn't have to be intentional, but intent and impact are not the same things. This is why it's important for us to take charge. This is why it's important for us to do the work, do the things that matter. This is why in DEI we talk about disrupting the status quo, because these are just things that we do every day. We don't think about it. It just happens. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Let's take the time to put context to the things that come out of our mouth. Yeah, that could be a little offensive. How do I own that? What does it look like? And here's the thing. Every person on this call, individually and collectively, we have the power to drive the change. Inclusion and diversity as a program did not exist in Treasury until April of 2018. The people had the power to drive the change. When Treasury created its inclusion and diversity program, it did not exist in any other state government institution in Michigan. It wasn't here. The people can drive the change. And although it started in April of 2018, we will put respect on the fact that there were people having these conversations long before that. There were people expressing concerns, expressing like impacts of marginalization and discrimination, all of these things. That work stands on the shoulders of those unnamed people. But we have the power to drive a change. And when we talk about what Treasury's inclusion and diversity program has been around recruitment and retention and professional development and management leadership resources and cultural awareness and education, we talk about those things in a preventative manner. Why? Compliance is great. But remember, I told y'all Title VII passed in 1964. We've been had compliance. And we still have issues if we were just going to be honest about it. Compliance is great to deal with it after the fact. Prevention is better, so we can head it off before it becomes an issue. That's what Treasury's Inclusion and Diversity Program is about. How are we intentional about cultivating the type of sustainable, inclusive environment that, in the words of Treasurer Eubanks, allow us to be our best self and do our best work? It transcends political affiliation. I oftentimes share the story that when this work started in April of 2018, it was under our prior administration. It was under a Republican governor and a Republican treasurer. And a lot of times people felt like it's just the flavor of a month. It's just what we're talking about now. It's going to change. It's going to go away. No, it didn't. When we transitioned to a Democratic treasurer and a Democratic governor, they saw the value of this work. Now that the conversations of talent acquisition and getting the best people to do the work, recognizing we have more jobs than we have people, we have to be intentional about grabbing them, bringing them in, capturing them where they are. We have work to do. It didn't go away. It only expanded. It only went from an initiative to a program to an office at this point. It went from Treasury to equity and inclusion officers in every state department we have. It went to whole bureaus and DHHS. Like, it is growing. It is not minimizing. It's not shrinking. It's not going to go away. So how do we engage? How do we do better? How do we start our proactive steps? I would tell you about one thing that Treasury is doing. Only one, right? Because I can keep y'all here for 8 hours, and I know you really don't want that. So we're going to talk about one thing that Treasury is doing. One of the things we're doing are called employee resource groups. Treasury currently has 6 employee resource groups. So what are employee resource groups? These groups are like voluntary or grassroots groups formed by our employees. Like they are formed by, led by, and endorsed our employees to align with the department's DEI efforts in creating and sustaining inclusive work environments. Technically, the first known ERG, which you may have heard as a BRG, a business resource group, or an affinity group, was created by Black employees in the Xerox company in 1970. At that time, that CEO was Joseph Wilson. It's on the tape. The picture you see here, excuse me, is part of one of our employee resource groups supporting women at Treasury, or SWAT. They are pictured here with the state of Michigan's first female treasurer, Treasurer Rachel Eubanks, and her mother. All right. Why are ERGs beneficial? I'm going to give you the quickest rundown I can of them. 1, they attract and retain talent to your organization. Remember, we talked about talent acquisition. Y'all see all these postings we got up? We need people. When we go out, every time, I guarantee you, whether it's a career fair, a cultural event, anything, people are asking me, well, what do you do to support employees in your workplace? How are you talking about diversity? ERGs are one of those ways. We create organized, brave spaces, I use that in quotes, to identify gaps and concerns impacting inclusion. When the unfortunate and untimely death of George Floyd happened, it rocked a lot of people. Treasury was having this conversation long before that incident, but it rocked a lot of people. These ERGs created the space for people to have those really authentic conversations about how that impacted them day to day, about how it impacted them in their communities. Because when you're your whole authentic self, you show up with all of that in the workspace, no matter how much you try to minimize it. If my day start off on 10 because these kids is late, the bus is late, somebody left the lunch, like, I'll bring that with me when you want me to hit an 8:30 meeting. I'm like, Jesus. We have to talk about it. We have to be honest about it. Another one, it creates great employee engagement, innovation, and authentic collaboration. People identify the needs they have in these spaces. Part of these groups help us identify the need for using alt text with images, because people who rely on screen readers, those who are part of the deaf, blind, hard of hearing community, cannot fully engage without alt text at times. We need it. It's a requirement. If you don't talk to people in that community, you don't understand the significance of what they're dealing with without it. So, innovation at its finest. It supports welcoming, inclusive, and equitable work environments for everybody. This is getting you that size 6 when you need it instead of giving you a size 4 and telling you to make it work, all right? It develops desired workplace skills, including leadership traits. People are learning how to lead groups, create agendas, strategically plan, engage with leadership, communicate effectively. It does all of this in these ERGs, and it helps the organization build a better reputation. All of this and more, this is just a few, right? Let me tell you what ERGs are not, though, while we're on the topic. They're not the single answer for your department's DEI problems. Please note, I said this is one of the things we are doing, not the thing, not the only thing, not the main thing. It is one of the things we are doing. It is not a place of comfort for dominant culture. So this is not the space for you to walk in and say, yeah, I don't agree with that. Yeah, I disagree with that. No, we don't need this. I'm not telling you as a person you have to agree. I'm telling you this ERG is not the space for you to take that energy. You can come talk to me all day long as the equity and inclusion officer, as the inclusion and diversity officer. I'm happy to engage you in that space. But remember, these ERGs are grassroots. These boards are your peers. They're your colleagues. This is not the space for you to tear them down or rip them apart. That's not what this is for, okay? They're also not substitutes for your department leadership engaging and growing in DEI. You still have to do the work. Your leaders still need to show up. If you are a leader, you need to show up. Our treasurer shows up. Our chief deputy treasurer shows up. Our deputy treasurers show up. Your department directors show up, okay? Brom Spisley, when he was here, showed up. Michelle Lang, she shows up, okay? Like, we've had the governor show up. Leaders are a part of this work. They have to be. ERGs are not complaint investigators, human resources, or labor relations, okay? Remember that compliance side? It's still a thing. There are already positions for that, all right? Remember, we're talking about proactive, preventative, and engaging work. And they're not free labor. ERGs are not the thing you throw together and tell them, do the work of lifting this emotional burden without us having to pay you anything to do it. No, this is real work. I promise you, I enjoy my job. I have fun at work, but it's still real work. There are days I don't like to show up. There are days that I am just annoyed. It's real work. People do this on work time. Why? Because it's pouring into this department. It's pouring into this organization. It's building your reputation. This is work. You pay people for it. Okay. How do you establish the ERG? Because you've never done it before. I've done it 2, 3, 5, 10 times. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what that looks like. By the way, this picture off to the side is a picture of our Treasury Pride Alliance, ERG, our LGBTQIA plus ERG, as we did a donation and partnership with Salas Center, Lansing's first ERG, LGBTQIA plus Community Resource Center. That's what that picture is, just so you are aware of it. I try to give you the context. I will also say in Treasury, any employee can join any ERG that they would like to be a part of. You do not have to identify with that ERG in order to join and support. All right, what do? 1, develop the framework. Have the conversation and get approval from your senior leadership to explore the creation of a group. Talk to your equity and inclusion officer. Get their feedback before you go and do a group. Determine the interest level for your staff. So have some informal conversations, do some surveys, determine how much people want to be involved. Create some guidelines, get an application, an approval process, get you some metrics going, and engage others along the way. This helps you make better decisions. Then you should align this ERG with the department. It should be in support of your current DEI initiatives, goals, efforts, strategic planning, okay? Tie the ERG mission to the department's overall strategic plan. Identify potential executive leadership or champions for the groups. Create a very strong communication strategy. You have to get the word out. What's next? Roll it out. This is also a picture of our Black History Committee. We did a partnership with Habitat for Humanity and rehabbed the house for a day. Y'all, I was out there painting walls. I didn't know that painting could cause like muscle pain. I had stuff all in my hair. We was hanging cabinets. Like, again, it was work, but we were giving back, right? So we give back inside our organization and out in our community. Advise leadership, supervisors, managers, and staff. Be sure to communicate the business case of why. Yes, we are doing this because it supports our department's strategic goals and initiatives. It helps us build sustainable, equitable, and inclusive environments. We're not just doing it because it feels good. I am glad that it feels good, but that's not the only reason why. There's research and studies behind the impact of having inclusive practices and inclusive environments. Communicate that when you roll it out, all right? Cover the documents and the process so people know what to do. Acknowledge that the process feels a little bumpy or awkward. When you start anything new, it doesn't go smooth. I don't care how much work we put into it, how much testing we do, how many times we prep. Something's bound to go wrong. It's okay. Perfectly fine. Just acknowledge it. It will feel a little bumpy. It's going to feel a little clunky, but it will get smoother the more we do it, the more we engage, the better we are. So acknowledge it on the front end and engage all levels of staff. Everybody needs to know that they are part of this work. It's not enough for you to just say, yeah, my employees can go, but I don't need to. It's not enough for you to be like, well, I mean, this isn't really for me. Yes, it is for you. It's for you. If you're right-handed and left-handers are talking about the need for scissors that help cut the way they cut, this conversation is for you. You need to know that these differences exist. Everybody's a part of this work. Course correct as necessary. Identify gaps and adjust accordingly. You're not going to cover everything in your planning. It's okay. Pivot. Be open to change, flexibility, adaptability. Do those things. Allow spaces for the groups to grow uniquely. Look for space to collaborate with others, and always be willing to reach out to others, right? Like, you don't have to shoulder the burden by yourself, all right? Measuring your impact is critical. You have to measure things. Leading and lagging measures. Shout out to John Peralta for being the first to teach me I had to do better, all right? So measure it, capture it, know what it is. And Liz would keep me on my toes about reporting my metrics. John made sure I knew how to define it. Why? Ashley, why? What is it? What does it look like? What is the percentages? I was like, good Lord, Jesus. But it was a better product. This is why we engage others. This is a picture that we took from our Veterans ERG. This is actually a picture of my family members, all the family members I have that serve in the armed forces. Thank you all for your service that you do. But we did a presentation for all of our armed family members, and this was one I submitted. So measuring impact is crucial. Metrics help you identify potential problem and areas of strength. Like, you need to measure it so you know what's going on. Tracking participation rates are helpful. You can do this by identifying business units, classifications, etc. Like, there's a lot to cover in this, okay? So just know you should be tracking something, measuring something. What are your outcomes? What are your deliverables? Are you hitting your target? And as John told me, if you're hitting it every time, you just knocking it out the park, We are batting 95 for 100. That is awesome. That means you're measuring the wrong thing. You're already doing good at that. You should be measuring something else. You're not doing this work to pat yourself on the back about how great you are doing. You are doing this work so you can continue to grow, continue to stretch, hit those targets. So measure your outcomes, set clear expectations, know what you want to do. That was the long rundown of this, how you can get started with an ERG. I think we got just a few more slides, so I'm going to go through these really quick and we're going to hit some questions. Here's the thing. I told you we were going to come back to this. Who is more responsible for clarity during communication? Because we talk about communication a lot. It is in everything that we do. And as a lot of people already mentioned, both are equally responsible. You have the responsibility of communicating in an effective manner, asking if there are questions, pausing and giving time. But if you are the person receiving the message, you have the responsibility of making sure you clearly understand what is being communicated. Ask follow-up questions, engage, clarify language, but both are equally responsible. And what is the goal? Here's the goal. We want to create an inclusive environment where people can be their authentic selves and where differences are celebrated. That's the goal. This will cause us to challenge ourselves at times and what we think is normal, air quote, or acceptable, air quote. What was normal and acceptable 30 years ago is not normal and acceptable now, and we have to understand culture is fluid. It is not stagnant. It doesn't stay the same. It evolves, it changes, it does a lot. We need to be mindful of it, okay? And we all have the responsibility to communicate effectively. You see this inclusion starts with I. If there was one thing I wanted you to take away from this, it is that. Inclusion starts with I, me. I have to do the work. It is so easy to look externally and tell everybody about all the things they should do differently and why they should change and what isn't working. But inclusion starts with I. Look at yourself. Put space between stimulus and response. Be open to feedback. Own your mistakes. It's important, right? And know, wrong way. Dang it. And know that I'm here for you as a resource. Okay? So with that, I will stop sharing my screen because I know that's a lot, y'all. It's a lot to take in. What questions do we have?
Ashley, can you share just like how you and I collaborate, like from a CI in the CI space and in the diversity, equity, inclusion space to just like make sure that when one of us is like moving on a project, we're just making sure we're ingrained and in sync.
Absolutely. So DEI and CI, change management, all those things, we have very much a push and pull relationship, right? We're all part of the work together. So Ann and I collaborate on all of our projects. Honestly, everything we do, we're collaborating with one another. We spend time in meetings because we have processes and frameworks and strategies. They're fantastic. And my job is to say, are we looking at the opportunity to add an equity lens to the work that we're doing? Are we capturing the intersectionality? Are we looking at the varying demographics? We've done the same thing with the employee engagement survey. Shout out to Pam Kenny and Jim Williams for supporting the statewide enterprise EIO work and us applying some of the frameworks to the work that we do, right? So this isn't just a report out or a push out. It is a push and pull. We are learning and growing and doing things collaboratively together to make us better, to make sure we're thinking about our gaps and our areas of focus for what we can collaborate and grow with. So thank you for elevating that, Pam. Ann, sorry. Did I hit everything? Anything you want to add to that? Because you're a part of this partnership too.
No, I just think like, at first it might, you're like, okay, what could, what could that possibly bring into XYZ project? But just having that conversation will really surprise you. There's some things where I'm like, I feel like this is 100% done, but I'm like, everything, I'm like, let me just talk to Ashley. And then like, she makes a really good point about something that it would have been completely missed if I hadn't had her in that space. So it just brings some really good thought-provoking questions that you can ingrain in things like strategic planning and employee engagement, debriefs, things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ann. Other questions, comments, concerns, complaints, suggestions, criticism, feedback, all the above.
I have a question. This is Holly
Yes.
Plaga. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, as a continuous improvement manager, we really work on trying to create connections. And what I'm finding is that a lot of people are hesitant to create connections for fear of offending people.
Yeah.
Because it's almost the scales have tipped in some, and when like my company does not have a DEI. So I guess my question to you is, how do I encourage people when we're doing workshops, when we're doing things, or like my folks, boots on the ground, to create those connections and be brave? And it's not worry, but be conscientious. And like you said, people make mistakes, but people are so afraid to make the wrong mistake. So how do you work through that conversation with folks when you're trying to encourage them to make connections? I guess that's my question.
So I would start, like, there's a lot of things to unpack in that, but I would start by this. First thing I would say is we're all human. We all have implicit bias. We all have expressed explicit bias. Like, we all are always in a constant state of learning and growing, right? I don't show up to you as a perfect person, as a DEI professional. I've made mistakes. I still will make mistakes. And it's my job to own the correction in that. I am a big proponent that everything starts with language, right? So even when you say, Holly, oh, the scales have tipped, they didn't really tip. What happened is people that have been marginalized and repressed for so long, ignored for so long, are finally getting the space to elevate those voices. These are not new things. We're just processing them in a different way. So understanding that it's not right or wrong necessarily, it's not always good and bad. It's a change. It is different, and change is inevitable. How do we pivot? How do we own it? How do we grow? Staying stagnant is not the answer, right? But I also think this is why the work of being proactive is so helpful. Everything is not about compliance. Fear-based is not the way I like to engage in this work. I'm not going to tell you that there are not some things that happen that people say, that people do, that don't have adverse or negative, consequences. I'm not going to tell you that never happens. But what I will tell you is rarely does that happen on a first mistake, and rarely does it happen on a second. Rarely does a dismissal happen on a third. Like, you have to be really egregious for the wall to come down on you. But own it and recognize, hey, I'm not perfect. I will change. I will do better. Seek it out. I know you said your business doesn't have a DEI person. Get one. Like I told the treasurer when we first started this work, DEI is not the special project you can pick up when you're not busy and put down when you are. It requires constant, ongoing maintenance, review. There are theories, there are frameworks, there are strategies. Like, I promise you, I have a real job, right? Like, it's a real job. If you want the real results, invest in having a real position. That is kind of my thing. So if you want to be authentic, I say this: if they're scared of interactions, be comfortable getting comfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's in that space that change happens. I say that regularly. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, whether that uncomfortable is taking in information from someone else that you would not have considered, or whether that uncomfortable is putting yourself out in a space to be vulnerable and say, I don't really know, and I might make a mistake, and I'm sorry if I offend you. And if that was offensive, please help me be better. But do the due diligence to own it too, right? Like, it is not the responsibility of marginalized and underrepresented communities to always correct you and give you feedback. You have to be willing to do the diligence and do the work with credible resources. All right. Don't tell me you Googled and read somebody's blog. That ain't enough. Like, do the real work the right way. Caitlin, I see your hand is up. And I'm sorry, Holly, because I know we're over time. I'm so sorry. Caitlin, what do you have?
So my question is, what is the line between, I know we try to walk the line with not offending people and things like that, but also everyone's responsible for their own emotions and their own emotional response. So where do you walk the line between being respectful and being aware of your language, being aware of diversity and inclusion, and then also being aware of boundaries and emotional boundaries. And everyone has, everyone's responsible for their own emotional reaction and things like that.
I think that's an excellent question, Caitlin. So this tap dance is on a couple different things, but I'm going to start with emotional intelligence, right? We have to be conscious of how we're engaging and impacting others in our work environment, all right? I'm not going to tell you what to do in your own house. That's on you, right? Like, I would give you suggestions, but emotional intelligence is imperative, right? If you are one of those people who choose to be brash and abrasive in your language and your context and your word and say, well, that's somebody else's responsibility to deal with. Like, but really, it isn't, because what did my grandmother used to say? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I could tell you you're a bumbling idiot, or I could say, I believe we have a disconnect in information that we accordingly understand similarly. How can we work on bridging that gap so we're more effective with one another? So there is a space where you can be honest. I encourage people, be honest, be transparent, because that's what you're going to get from me, right? And I can have a very authentic conversation with you without attacking you, without belittling you, without degrading you. So it's just as important for me to be mindful of what I say and how I say it as it is for a person to own how they feel. Now, if you take out of that, I feel like Ashley told me I have some work to do. You can ask follow-up questions, or you can do that work yourself, right? But emotional intelligence is always going to be a key driving factor in any DEI work that we're doing. Is that fair, Caitlin? Fantastic. Other questions, comments, concerns, complaints, suggestions, criticism, feedback? I know we are over time, and I am sorry for not respecting your time. I'll make sure the presentation is shorter next time so we can do more of this.
Thank you so much, Ashley. We really appreciate and having you here. And I would say, based on the comments in the chat, most agree. It is absolutely wonderful to see you and have you present. And we did post in the chat to please fill out the survey. So I'm not sure, Andy or Holly, if either one of you are wrapping anything up.
I think Andy's taking care of it through the survey. Oh,
Yep.
to wrap up the session.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Well, Ashley, I don't know if you remember, but I actually reached out to you through Dr. Jaffer many years ago when I was in my master's program. So I had always had you near and dear to my heart. And when Pam mentioned your name, I'm like, oh, so excited. So you delivered. Thank you so much. I've got so many more questions, but as a resource for the Michigan Lean Consortium is priceless. And again, so thankful to have you. And everybody, it's Friday, it's Michigan, the weather's gonna be great, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you all enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
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 Thank you.